hamstring injury. As for tomorrow, the 10th-ranked Vanderbilt Commodores host the 15th-ranked Missouri Tigers in a big SEC matchup. Head coach Clark Lee spoke earlier this week on his players playing free.
I really want these guys to have fun. I want them playing loose and free and together, and that's when we're at our best.
The Commodores look to extend their playoff hopes with a win tomorrow. You can hear coverage beginning at 1 right here on 102.5 The Game, the Game Nashville Sports Network.
For more, log on to thegamenashville.com. Your sports live here on the Game Nashville Sports Network.
Your sports live here. WBUZ HD3 Laverne. We are the Game Nashville Sports Network. ESPN 94.9. The Fan.
30 years of the best sports talk in Middle Tennessee. It's the George Plaster Show, featuring Tennessee Sports Hall of Famers Kelly Holcomb and young gun Billy Derrick. And now, here's your host, George Plaster.
Welcome into the George Plaster Show today. As you can tell by my voice, I am not George Plaster. I am Parker Kelly. George is still in Indiana, somewhere in Indiana. I believe he is traveling back. He may join us throughout the show today, but don't count on it. So for right now, you are stuck with me. That may be a good or it may be a bad thing. I guess we'll have to find out throughout the duration of the 2 hours. No Kelly Holcomb today either. They have both left me high and dry, which is totally fine because it's a football Friday. We get to talk about football for 2 hours today. One of my favorite things to do on planet Earth. We have an absolutely loaded show today. Matt Kriesky from Blackman Football is going to join us in about, I don't know, maybe a minute or two. We have George Robinson from the Tennessean going to take us through all the high school football action in the state. He'll be joining us at 3:20. Holly Taylor at 3:45. I guess we're going to talk about concussions like we do every week. She is at Star Physical Therapy. At 4 o'clock, we'll have our Daily Titans update by the one and only Terry McCormick of Main Street Media. And at 4:20, one of my favorite people on planet Earth, that is Watson Brown, former Vandy and UAB head coach. We're going to talk some college football because it is a loaded slate once again this weekend. But without further ado, let's get to the man of the hour. That is Matt Kriesky of Blackman Football. Coach, really appreciate you joining us today. How are we doing?
Pretty good. Appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. So I wanted to talk about this team and what you've seen from them throughout the duration of the season. The regular season's almost over. You're sitting at 7-1. I know last year you guys really struggled with some injuries, some different injury situations, but got that win in the first round of the playoff. This year, 7-1. What have you really liked from your team so far through 8 games of the regular season?
Just how they've responded and been resilient when negative things have happened. You know, in years past, I feel like when something negative has happened throughout the course of the game that we didn't really respond well. But I feel like this year, you know, from the first game on, you know, we didn't start our first drive of the season. You know, we had a fumble. You know, got down 7-0 to Clarksville, and it really, the guys just really didn't affect them at all. You know, we ended up winning that game 24-7. So things like that throughout the course of the year has really helped us. You know, and then since fall break, we've started out fast, and that's something I preach. You know, because early on we're starting out slow. It took us, you know, second half to really get going. But here since fall break, we've really jumped ahead of our opponents in the first quarter, and that's something we've been preaching, and that those guys have really responded to that. And so we hope to keep that momentum going tonight.
Absolutely. And you talk about the resiliency of your football team. It was a little over 3 weeks ago where you guys suffered your first loss of the season to Oakland. But since that point, 2 35-7 victories in a row. Is that the type of resiliency you're talking about? Yeah.
Those guys, you know, you never know how these teenagers are going to respond to something like that. You know, we didn't play our best game. I thought defensively we played a really good first half against Oakland. Offensively, we didn't play well all night, but you know, Second half was very uncharacteristic of our defense, and I think it's kind of woken them up a little bit. And so they've responded well these past couple of weeks. And we made some adjustments offensively that I think that's helped us out. And you don't really like to say it, but I think that loss has really taught us something about our team and some of the things that we need to fix and correct if we're going to make a run in the playoffs.
And something that I've really liked about your team, Coach, you take out that loss, your team is really good at playing complementary football. The offensive numbers speak for themselves, but if you look at the defense, again, taking out that Oakland loss, the most points you've allowed all season is 10, and that came in week 3 to Riverdale. What do you make of how your team has played complementary football on offense and defense?
We just – what I really think, and especially what I saw last week is, once, we scored on our first drive, and then our defense, they came out just excited and feeding off our offensive energy, and they created a turnover. So it gave us a short field. And then once that happened, it just felt like the guys just really got into it and kept playing. And that's been huge for us. But also, man, we've had, I think it's four block punts this year. We blocked a field goal against Stonesville, scooped and scored. Jaden Lark did for 70 yards. So our special teams has also been huge for us this season too.
So I've talked to several coaches in the past, and some of them, it varies really coach to coach, but some of them emphasize blocking punts, blocking kicks, blocking extra points, things like that. Is that something that you and your staff emphasize to your special teams units?
Yeah, we work on it every Sunday, figuring out things that we look at the opponents, how they kick in field goals, extra points, and punting the ball, and try to come up with ways that we think that we could block it and then, and steal some points. It's huge. Special teams is a huge part of the game also, and that's, we want to keep, if we feel like if we can get a touchdown off of special teams, that's huge, and it gives big momentum and hopefully a game changer for us.
What have you really seen, and moving on to Siegel, this is the team that y'all will play tonight. What have you liked from Siegel, or what do you see? I guess this is a better way of putting it. What have you seen from Siegel's side of things on film this week or throughout practice that can really give your team problems tonight?
I think defensively they're a really good defensive team. They slanting and moving up front that can cause us problems. If we're not doing what we're supposed to do with the up front on the offensive line. So that's some things we've been working on this week. Those guys and their back end are really well coached. They fly the football. So we got to be ready for that. And offensively, you see them against Oakland. They move the football well. So you can tell they're a really good football team. We can't give them extra opportunities or let them get going. We've got to be ready tonight and hopefully play our style of football and what we've been doing.
You got 2 games left in the regular season before the playoffs start. It's incredible how fast these weeks fly by, because it seems like just yesterday the season kicked off and now we're almost to the end. How do you want to see your team finish out the regular season?
Just doing what we've been doing the past couple of weeks, not having let down. So we talked about all week. Siegel's fighting to get in the playoffs, so we're going to get their best shot. They're going to give us everything they got tonight, so we can't just think that all we got to do is show up and we're going to get a win. So we've preached that all week, how we have to be ready to play. And since we came back from fall break, we told the guys like every game's a playoff game basically for this region, because we got teams fighting to get in the playoffs. And also one of our goals this year was to host the playoff game. So we've got to win these last 2 if we're going to host one.
Absolutely. And I got one more question for you, Coach. Emotional maturity seems to be a big thing, especially at this stage, because there are so many different things that can serve as distractions. And honestly, one of the biggest distractions can be success. When you start winning a lot, you start to believe that you're invincible. I don't get that vibe from this team as you've been describing. How you mentioned kind of closing out this regular season, but what do you want to see from your team specifically tonight that shows you that they're not worried about what happened last week? They're not worried about the previous wins. They're focused on the task at hand.
I want them to come out and execute the game plan offensively and defensively, and be ready to play when we kick off at 7:00. We not have to fight through any distractions through pregame, through warm-ups, and just come out and do our style of football and do what we're supposed to do and what we preach week in and week out.
Coach, really appreciate the time. Hope to talk to you soon in the future, and best of luck versus Siegel tonight.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me on.
That was head coach Matt Kriesky of Blackman football. His Blaze getting ready to take on Siegel tonight at 7. A loaded slate of high school football games that we're going to preview with George Robinson coming up here very shortly. Loaded slate of college games as well. NFL on Sunday. Best time of year. We're getting close to that first week in November. And I woke up this morning and I check the old weather radar and see that it was mid-30s. And I'm like, man, it's really starting to feel like fall, because we have this thing in Tennessee called false fall. For those of you that are unaware, or maybe some of you that have just moved here, it seems like there are a lot of people just now moving to Tennessee. But we have this thing called false fall. And when October first rolled around on the calendar, we still had summer temperatures. I'm one of those guys that I'm fine with mid-60s. And now that we're starting to get that cooler weather, very happy. And it just really signifies that we're really getting into the meat of the football schedule, whether that be high school, college, or NFL. We are back at the Ford Ice Center. I was at Sports and Social yesterday doing our promotions event for Thursday Night Football between the Vikings and the Chargers, in which the Chargers won in a fashion that they needed to, because they were really struggling over the course of their last 4 games or so, but they got a big win over the Vikings last night. Carson Wentz did not look great for the Vikings. Know that he was struggling through an injury, specifically to it looked like his left arm. But the Chargers got a much needed win. They sit at 5-3. Meanwhile, the Vikings fall back to 3-4. I was at Sports and Social yesterday for that. We're back at the Ford Ice Center. George will rejoin me again on Monday as he's traveling back from Indiana. He is at an event with his church. That is where he's been over in Fort Wayne. Kelly will also rejoin us on Monday. But as for right now, you guys are stuck with me. So we're going to have a lot of fun today. We're going to sit back. We're going to talk some football. In the meantime, we're going to go ahead and hit a break. And when we come back, we're going to talk to George Robinson of the Tennessean. He's going to get us caught up to speed on all things high school football. You are listening to the George Plaster.
When I got my first car, my dad told me, keep the gas tank full and my number on speed dial. Now parents are telling their kids, save 615-242-9000 just in case. I'm Blair Durham. If you or someone you love is in a wreck, call us. We're here to get you the money you deserve.
A golf cart from Mikey's Motors is the perfect way to get around this summer. Whether you're going to the park, the pool, or the playground, do it in a brand new golf cart from Mikey's Motors, Franklin and Murfreesboro.
Summertime fun in Tennessee. That's what we sell at Mikey's Motors. Come see how we roll.
It's easy to say good things about the folks at Strike and Spare Family Fun Centers. Number one, I trust them with something that's near and dear to me, the Plaster and Friends Celebrity Bowling Night. But more importantly, I see the fun people have. They enjoy the bowling. They enjoy the camaraderie, and you will too. Come by any of their locations and get ready to have some fun.
At Wilson Bank & Trust, we believe you shouldn't have to choose between personal service and digital solutions. As your local independent bank, we're proud to offer the relationships and trusted service you expect, along with the tools and technology that keep you moving forward. So whether you're growing a business, buying a home, or planning for the future, we're here to help. Because this isn't just where we work, it's where we live too. Wilson Bank & Trust, here to get you there. Member FDIC.
Are you looking for expert medical care in Nashville without leaving your home? Medical House Calls brings concierge-level health care directly to your door. Whether you need urgent attention, ongoing primary care, revitalizing IV therapy, or medically guided weight loss, our experienced providers are just a phone call away at 615-838-2375 or go online, medicalhousecalls.com. Calls.com. If you are paying too much for your health insurance, you know what? You need to contact the folks at Pancoast Benefits. Pancoast works with businesses and individuals to tackle the high cost of health insurance. Whether you're a business owner, large or small, self-employed, between jobs, or over the age of 65 and in need of a Medicare plan, Pancoast can help. They make understanding your benefits less difficult and more personal. So check them out today, pancoastbenefits.com, or call them at 615-292-3400.
ESPN Radio lives here. Your sports live here on ESPN 94.9 The Fan.
Cruz, you're making me so happy. Playing a little Thrillers. Halloween season, we got about a week. Yeah, a week exactly until Halloween is here. For those of you who don't know, Cruz is our producer back at the station doing a great job running the bump music. With that being said, we welcome in George Robinson of the Tennessean to talk some high school football. George, the guys have left me high and dry today, so it's just me running the show, so just me and you talking some high school football.
Oh, wow. Well, congratulations. You get to talk to me for the next 10, 15 minutes.
Yes, the pleasure is mine. So we just got off the phone with Matt Kriesky of Blackman football. I've been very impressed by this Blackman team. I know that they kind of struggled with some injuries last season. They upset Green Hill in the first round of the playoffs last year. Ended up being an early exit in the second round, but they're off to a 7-1 start. They look really good right now.
Yeah, they do. And you know, anybody who saw that Blackman team last year, even though they dealt with a lot of those dealt with some injuries last year, they were competitive in just about all their games. And you could kind of see how good this team was could potentially be last year. And so going into this year, I think they had a little bit of momentum. And, you know, they had a lot of guys come back this year. And so I think what you're seeing out of this team this year is sort of what was kind of simmering under the surface last year. A great defensive team, you know, will really get after you defensively. And, you know, certainly have done that this year. And, they've kind of made a statement this year in Murfreesboro. You know, of course, you know, you get the Oakland and Riverdale. Those two programs are usually right there at the top. You know, Blackman has kind of edged its way or wedged its way into that conversation in that city, you know, this year. So got to give Coach Kriesky a lot of credit, man. They really have played well this year, and they can do some damage once they get into the playoffs.
And Kriesky really emphasized how his team plays complementary football, because if you take out that Oakland loss, the most points that they've given up in a single season or a single game this year is 10 points, and that came in week 3 against Riverdale. So the complementary football aspect just makes Blackman that much more dangerous.
Yeah, you know, when you're playing as well as they are on both ends of the ball, and then in special teams as well. That just makes you tougher. Makes you a tougher out once you get to the postseason. You know, certainly Blackman is put themselves in a position to make a really deep run. How long that run will be will kind of will be decided on their matchups once they get into the playoffs. So it's going to be a really interesting, it's going to be a really interesting postseason high school football, and especially in Middle Tennessee with, certainly with teams in the Nashville area, with Oakland and Riverdale and Blackman. Those schools are really gonna they're really gonna be difficult for teams to put out of this tournament.
Several games are on my radar tonight, but one of the more intriguing ones, and to be honest, I don't know if I would have seen this coming in the preseason or before the season officially kicked off, but Franklin Road Academy travels to Grace Christian, both one-loss teams. What are you expecting in this one?
I really like, of course, Grace Christian lost its first game last week to Good Pasture, and I was at that game for at least the first half of it. And what I was really impressed with in regards to Good Pasture was how well they were able to kind of control the clock, control the game with their running game. Grace Christian had a really difficult time stopping Good Pasture's Caden Stroud, the running back that was originally at Davidson Academy before he transferred to Good Pasture. The Grace Christian really just had a hard time stopping the run against Good Pasture, and I think that's going to be the key for FRA. They got a good running game. Mike Housel's been really great this year. They've gotten good running back play, with a dual threat running back. So I think that is sort of the template or the blueprint, in facing a Grace Christian team that's, really good. I mean, they're 7-1, I think.
Yep.
But FRA, I think, is probably, a little, well, not probably. I think they are better defensively than Good Pasture, and certainly more offensively dynamic than Good Pasture. And I think that would be a tall ask for Grace Christian to pull off that win.
With that being said, how much of a threat is Grace Christian for potentially competing for a gold ball at the end of the year?
Well, I think, when you're looking at, a team like Grace Christian, they need to be playing complementary football. We mentioned it with Blackman. That's sort of the same, and every team needs to play complementary football. But, Grace Christian is really going to need to, rely on its ability to throw the ball and then defend the run. I think that's probably the biggest issue right now facing Grace Christian is the ability to defend the run. If you can do that in the playoffs, you're going to put yourself in a position to win a lot of games and have a shot, once we get into December, that first weekend in December. So that's when everybody wants to be playing. Those are the state championship games in Chattanooga. And to me, that's what it's going to take in order for a team like Grace Christian to be there.
And you mentioned Grace Christian suffering their first loss last week versus Good Pasture. Well, they have BGA tonight, and two teams that are really, really good. Do you expect that Good Pasture will be able to kind of control the clock like they did last week with a more high-tempo offense in BGA?
They better. If they want to, they need to keep BGA's offense off the field. I mean, that's easier said than done. FRA, I think, is the only team that's been successful at doing that, holding BGA just a high-scoring BGA team, only 14 points in that win over BGA a few weeks ago. To me, that's really the only way you can keep them at bay, keep BGA at bay is just to keep their offense off the field, and that's going to require Good Pasture to be able to run the ball. They ran the ball well against Franklin Grace, but BGA, I think, is probably even with that loss to FRA, I still would say they are probably the favorite. Either them or Boyd Buchanan, they're probably the favorite in D2 AA. For winning, a favorite to win the state title. I don't see where Good Pasture can kind of keep up with BGA from a scoring standpoint. So they're really going to have to rely on Caden Stroud and run the ball and just sort of take your time with it, eat up clock. And like I said, just keep that BJ offense off the field, because we know with what that offense can do with Caden Marable and Max Curry and those guys. So, it's going to be really incumbent upon Good Pasture just to keep that offense, keep that BJ offense off the field.
So many interesting games in Division II AAA this week. We have Ensworth and Baylor, and in my mind, I think of in that division specifically, it kind of works where it's Baylor, McCallie, and everybody else. But what makes this even more interesting, Ensworth beat McCallie. So is there a possibility that Ensworth could pull this off?
Yeah, I mean, I think they could. Whether or not they get that done remains to be seen, obviously. But I think Ensworth has, they have the pieces, they have the offense, and EJ Gibson, who's a fantastic running back. Taylor Hasselbeck, a quarterback. They have the defense, to be able to get it done. As well, led by Justin Hopkins on the back end at safety back there. They have the talent, they have the pieces, they have the coaching. Coach Tim Hasselbeck and his brother Matt Hasselbeck, who's offensive coordinator. So they have all of the pieces that you feel like you need in order to win a state title. D2 AAA is a difficult, that's a monster of a region and or a classification. So you have Baylor, you have McCallie, you have even on the west, the D2 AAA West region, you have Brentwood Academy, who's played extremely well this year, and a lot of people I know are picking Brentwood Academy to be in that state championship game in D2 AAA. So but certainly Ensworth is among that, the teams that I think people are sort of looking at as potential state title holders. I think Baylor's number one on that list, or number one in that conversation. I think McCallie and Brentwood Academy are probably 2A and 2B in that conversation. Maybe Ensworth is in that conversation as well. But certainly they have the talent to be able to do it.
And I wanted to ask one more question about that region, then we can move on to the public schools. Briarcrest and Lipscomb Academy tonight. Lipscomb Academy is trying to pull the nose up on their season. They're 3-5. Briarcrest 5-3. Is this an opportunity for? Well, obviously it is, but how likely is it that Lipscomb Academy gets their fourth win on the year?
Well, I feel like Lipscomb Academy is probably, they're one of those teams that has kind of played sort of in the shadows. They haven't had a great season, but they've played well in the region, and they have a quarterback in J.C. White who's played really, really well. They have a kid in Cam Blivens, who's probably one of the best players in the state of Tennessee. So they have a 1-2 punch there. The problem with, I think, Lipscomb Academy has just been, trying to put it all together, where they're playing 4 quarters of really good football, consistently every Friday night. I think that's probably been the thing that's bit them this year is they just haven't been consistent enough. But any given night, J.C. White can put up some big numbers at the quarterback position, and we know what Cam Blivens can do. So, I look at this Lipscomb team can absolutely win this game against Briarcrest. It's just a matter of, it's a matter of which Lipscomb Academy team is going to show up tonight. Is it going to be, the team that has, that has those 3 wins, or is it going to be the team that has those 5 losses? So, you have to, once Jamie Graham, the coach there, kind of steadies the ship, I think we're going to be fine. They just have at this point now they need to make their run, make their move.
And we're talking about talented quarterbacks, and whenever we mention that, I can't help but think of Cannon Burrows at Green Hill, and they have Wilson Central tonight. That is a newish rivalry. Green Hill, since starting the season 1-2, has rattled off 5 straight wins in impressive fashion. And meanwhile, Wilson Central is 5-3. They've had a little bit more success than they've had in recent years, but I still don't feel like I have a good read on Wilson Central. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I do think Wilson Central obviously is a good football team. They've struggled in the past few years, but they've seemed to kind of put it together this year. I don't know that I think Green Hill is a little bit better this year. Green Hill certainly doesn't have quite the gaudy numbers that it had last year, or the record that it had last year. In the regular season, I think they were undefeated in the regular season last year. They're not that same Green Hill team, but they're still very good. Cannon Burrows, you mentioned, still commands that huddle offensively at the quarterback position. A big, tall, accurate passer, can also run the ball, so he's a dual threat. I think that the fact that Green Hill has had a very tough schedule this year, it makes me think that this game is this opponent for Wilson Central is probably a little bit too much, but I do think Wilson Central is a good team. They're going to be in the playoffs. I just think maybe they're a year or two away from really making a deep run in the playoffs.
And for Green Hill, they've been early exits the last 2 years, first round in the playoff. And we talked about this last week, how they have emphasized scheduling tougher opponents so that way when they get to the playoffs, they're not caught off guard. Do you see that strategy working out better in their favor this time around?
Yeah, I think anytime you play better competition during the regular season, it's going to benefit you. It's going to benefit you in the playoffs, in the postseason, and that's why teams schedule tough opponents during the regular season. Procon's done it this year. CPA's definitely done it this year, and there's always an argument about whether or not scheduling tough opponents like that is beneficial to a team, or does it hinder a team or hurt a team. I think it only hurts your team if your team is very young, or if your program is first starting out. I think that's when maybe you try to schedule softer opponents, easier games, to kind of gain some momentum. Get the program up and running, get the school and the community behind the program, get the kids excited about the program. And then as you get better, then you start scheduling tougher opponents, because by that point, you have the talent. Now you need to go out and take it to the next level, get to the playoffs, then, make a run in the playoffs, maybe get to the state championship game and eventually win the state championship game. You really can't do that if you're playing a very soft schedule. So, Green Hill is kind of, they kind of done that. It's not a very old program. I mean, I think they've been around for 4 or 5 years now, and they have, gotten better. They've progressively gotten better and better. But like you said, they don't want to be first, second round playoff exits anymore. So they want to make a run deep in the playoffs. So, sometimes you sacrifice having a great regular season record, to put yourself in a position where you make a run deep in the playoffs because of the schedule that you've put together during the regular season, and that's prepared you for a deep playoff run. And hopefully you find yourself playing, that first weekend in December.
One of the biggest lies that this sports offers is you are what your record says you are. And we see that a lot throughout high school football, because there are so many teams with deceiving records that may have 3-4 losses, but can end up beating you any given Friday night One team that I'm absolutely fascinated by is Antioch and what our Sensei Broom has done with that program. I think of a program that has been down in the gutters, and there is a real possibility that they can go throughout their entire regular season without a single loss. Now they have to close out the regular season 2 games on the road, but they have Clarksville tonight, who is 6-2.
Yeah.
How impressive in your mind has Antioch been?
Well, extremely impressive. And again, that's another one of those programs that you could kind of see, kind of like Blackman. You can kind of see it coming. The past couple of years, they've gotten a little bit better, first under Devin Arnold, who's their coach, and then, our Sente Broom, who's in his second year at Antioch. Last year, they were a little bit better. This year, they have just taken off. And a lot of that has to do with the talent on that offensive side of the football with the quarterback, Andre Adams, who's to me a power forward football player. He already has several offers. He should be getting a whole lot more bigger offers too pretty soon. So and then they have Brandon Galladay, who's their wide receiver, super fast. I watch video clips of him, and I'm just amazed at how quickly he gets off the line of scrimmage and can, create separation from defensive backs. And then, Andre just has to, put the ball on the money, and he has all season long, and that's, kind of fueled Antioch this year. But they're having, their best season in, I don't know, it's since the 60s. So, you're talking, over 55 years, they're having their best season ever. So, this game against Clarksville is not going to be easy. They got to travel to Clarksville to play the Wildcats. And, Clarksville the past 2 years had undefeated regular season records. But they also scheduled much tougher this year. So they don't have that, perfect regular season record, but I don't think they would care if they could make a deep run in the playoffs as well. So, because Clarksville, they went 2 straight years where they didn't lose a regular season game, but also had 2 straight years of being bounced in the first round of the playoffs. So, they're looking for, a deep playoff run, themselves. So, I think this is a big game, between Clarksville and Antioch. I'm sure that Clarksville's thinking more, how can we gain some momentum going into the playoffs? So they may not be, the sky isn't falling if they lose this game. And for Antioch, they're also looking at the playoffs. Both of these teams are playoff bound anyway. But Antioch wants to go in there with all of the momentum, all of the confidence in the world, that would go along with a 10-0 regular season record. The trick is to then turn that 10-0 regular season record into playoff success.
I got one more question for you as we wrap things up, and I feel like I have to ask this because it's been speculated a bunch, and it kind of is outside the lines just a little bit of high school football. But 5-star quarterback Jared Curtis, who is committed to the University of Georgia, is visiting Vanderbilt this weekend. I have my own opinions on it, and I have my own thoughts, but I just wanted to get yours. Are you hearing anything on that front?
I have not heard anything in terms of in terms of him, wavering from his commitment to Georgia. I think that's still pretty strong. I think what you have here is there's a lot of buzz with Vanderbilt, and rightfully so. They have been absolutely fantastic this year. Diego Pavia has been fantastic. I know Diego Pavia came to see Jared Curtis play a couple of weeks ago in a high school football game. And so you have a kid that's in Nashville, and you have a program that traditionally speaking hasn't played, hasn't done well in the SEC in terms of football, but here they are ranked 10th in the nation, and they got College Game Day coming tomorrow, and it's a big week, and hey, if you're Jared Curtis, why not take that visit, to be around College Game Day, to be around two top two top 25 teams playing, you know, in a big SEC game. You know, but I don't think it means anything. At least I myself don't feel like it means anything significant in terms of Jared's commitment to Georgia. I think he's still very heavily committed there. I just think it's an opportunity for him to, you know, spend some time in Nashville, in his hometown, and watch, you know, two very, very good SEC football teams play and soak up the environment that'll be College Game Day when ESPN shows up tomorrow.
Absolutely, George. Really appreciate the time. It's always a pleasure. You're very generous. Enjoy some high school football tonight, and we'll talk again next week.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
That was George Robinson of the Tennessean talking some high school football. We'll wrap up the hour. On the other side, we'll talk with Holly Taylor of Star Physical Therapy. And also, I'll kind of briefly recap everything that was talked about with George Robinson. We covered a lot of ground. So I'll give you some games and players to watch. On the other side, this is the George Plaster Show.
When I got my first car, my dad told me, keep the gas tank full and my number on speed dial. Now parents are telling their kids, save 615-242-9000 just in case. I'm Blair Durham. If you or someone you love is in a wreck, call us. We're here to get you the money you deserve.
Smashville hockey. Around here, it can sound like a language of its own. But hey, if you can pronounce Demumbrian, then names like Yossi, Shea, Marchessault will roll right off the tongue. Nashville Predators, only in Smashville.
Sports and Social in Green Hills Mall is the new home for our Football Night in Nashville promotion. Their food is terrific. Their TV setup looks like a racing sports book in Vegas. And if you're a sports fan, you can't beat it. Starting September the 4th, we'll broadcast from Sports and Social every Thursday night. There's Pop-A-Shot, great football, and the chance to win a beautiful Mikey's Motors golf cart. See you at Sports and Social in Green Hills Mall. Venture Express has been helping people in this area for more than 40 years. They're headquartered in Murfreesboro with over 30 years of dedicated fleets involving production, manufacturing, and corrugated experiences. They're an asset-based company with over 700 tractors, 4,000 trailers, and 800 drivers. If you need their help, dial them up 615-793-9500 or log on to ventureexpress.com. Here's Officer Garen Hoskins for the Metro Nashville Police Department.
The Metro Nashville Police Department is on the forefront of policing in this century, and I'm glad I'm a part of it. I'm glad I get to find other good officers, other future good officers. And if you're watching today, or you yourself or someone you happen to know is interested, join MNPD.com. Feel free to reach out to us because we need good officers, and it's a great city to work for.
Crew's got me feeling right with the music today. Yeah, that was our conversation. And just in case you missed it, you can always go back and check out the YouTube live stream, or you can check out our podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. That was George Robinson of the Tennessean taking us through all the high school football action in the state. Lots of great games as we are wrapping up the regular season. We got 2 weeks left. Halloween is next week, and then it'll be November, and that signifies the start of the playoffs. I remember back in my day when I was playing, and I say back in my day like I'm an old person, I am not. Back in when I was a high school football player 4 or 5 years ago, these weeks would always fly by. And it seems like yesterday that we just kicked off the season, and now we're almost to the playoff. And sometimes that can be a bittersweet thing for a lot of these players. Some people may be done with their football career altogether. Some people have the hopes of playing in college, so that's always a great thing as well. This segment, we're going to recap everything that we talked about with George Robinson a little bit towards the end of the hour. But first, we have the opportunity to speak with Holly Taylor every week of Star Physical Therapy. She joins us now. Holly, the guys have left me high and dry this week, and it is just me. So now instead of hearing George's dumb questions, you get to hear my dumb questions.
That sounds fabulous.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but George does not just talk about concussions with you. We cover it all, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll start off with a concussion question, and please bear with me. There's a reason that I'm paid to talk about sports and not about other things, because I'm kind of an idiot when it comes to other things. But so back in my football playing days, I had a friend that suffered a concussion in game, and after the game was over, he kind of had this like weird memory loss type thing. He couldn't remember where he was, kind of stuttering over his words. What have you seen that kind of happen on a regular basis?
Yeah, it can definitely be one of the signs of a concussion, and you can have kind of two different kind of memory losses. You can see sometimes where they forget what happened before the concussion, and sometimes you can see that they forget things that happened after the concussion. Before they don't remember being at school that day. They don't remember what they ate that day. And then, the post can be, the game is over and they don't remember, from that point of impact and the rest of the game. They're like, who won, and I don't know what happened. So yes, they can definitely be one of the signs.
And I imagine that's got to be a pretty severe concussion if you have suffered that kind of memory loss like that. When that does happen, and the way that science is kind of advanced nowadays, how long does it take to usually recover from a concussion to that degree?
Yeah, the average for youth is going to be in that 7 to 10 day range, and that's an average. And so you can see some that are a little quicker than that, or you can see some that actually last a little longer than that. When we get into that, you're still having symptoms at the 4-week out mark. For us, that's a little long. We consider that more of post-concussion syndrome, and we send them back for further testing and help to try to get them over that.
Gotcha. And now with concussion recoveries, it's not you got to sit in a dark room for a week and no devices. What is the concussion recovery process like now compared to what it was like maybe 5-10 years ago?
Yeah, so it's really going to be symptom based, and so we want you to do things that don't aggravate your symptoms, and that can be different for every kid, and it can even be different for different concussions on the same kid. So, I tell my athletes, if it hurts you or makes your symptoms feel worse to watch TV, don't watch TV. If it hurts to be in a bright room, wear a hat and sunglasses. If being around noise is aggravating for your symptoms, then we want to reduce that, whether it's, noise canceling headphones, or I know sometimes we have kids go sit in a room when they have lunchtime, because the lunchroom can be quite aggravating, quite loud. The kids get in there and they're with each other, and it can be a loud environment.
Sure. And kind of moving off of the concussion topic, I find this kind of aspect really interesting because I was out playing flag football last night, and it's gotten to the point in Tennessee where it's finally colder, it's cooler weather outside, and I didn't sweat. And I usually sweat when I play flag football. but kind of emphasize how important it is to stay hydrated even if you're not sweating as much.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I think that can be, kind of a misnomer. Well, it's cold out, so I don't have to drink as much. And that's just not true. Especially when you're playing those, higher intensity sports, like football tonight. Those kids should stay well hydrated, because you can still see cramping happening, even into the later quarters. And a lot of times it's because they didn't probably drink as much that day. They didn't get enough electrolytes that day to maintain themselves into that, third quarter or fourth quarter. So it's so important.
Holly, I'm going to apologize in advance because this may be a really dumb question, but when you do start to cramp, and I've heard, it's good to eat a banana, maybe good to drink some pickle juice. I even had a teammate back in high school and college who had a mustard bottle on the sidelines, and when he would start to cramp, he would just squirt some mustard into his mouth. When you do start to cramp, is there a best food for you to eat to prevent the cramping, or is it just anything really that has salt in it?
Yeah, I think the prevention part is going to be, that diet during the week and your hydration during that week, making sure you're getting the foods that are going to supply you with the sodium, potassium, magnesium, and calcium. Those are kind of the 4 big electrolytes that are going to keep your muscles going. And so anything that contains those, and then also pre-game and even getting into the game, having some of the, electrolyte drinks. So that's, your Gatorades, Powerades, and all that. Once you start cramping, I actually just bought a bottle of mustard to keep on the sideline for me for basketball season, because I know that's coming up. Something of that high vinegar, high salt, it's not going to cure the cramps. It's not going to be this magical fix, but it can sometimes be enough to get you through. And so mustard is a good one, pickle juice. Another one that I like is actually hot sauce. And that's been shown to work as well.
Hot sauce. I've never heard of the hot sauce. Is that good for, I know it's good, for me, if I have sinuses, it's good at clearing it out. I didn't know it was good for cramping as well.
It can be, yeah, especially if you're someone like me who absolutely hates mustard.
Makes sense. I guess that's a good alternative. Where does stretching fall into all this in terms of before a game and after? Where does stretching fall into place in all this?
Yeah, and so stretching is always very important for pre-participation and post-participation. And so with the science, what we know now is, if you're in that hour kind of area before a game starts, that's where that dynamic stretching is really helpful to get your muscles kind of moving, get that blood flowing. Those are those ones where you see the kids standing in line and maybe they're doing some hopping, or some of the ones we call like open gate or karaoke, things like that. And then for after participation, that is when that static stretching can be really helpful. So that's where you're stretching and actually holding the stretch. I always tell my kids, do 10 of them, get that good 30 Mississippi count, and that can really help with that lactic acid buildup that you get during participation to help kind of break that up, so you're not getting that muscle soreness onset you can get sometimes after playing.
It's a good stretch when you're bringing out the 1 to 2 Mississippi. Holly, we really appreciate you coming on. I'm sorry for all my dumb questions. Hopefully we'll be back to George next week and he can ask you some dumb questions as well. But really appreciate the time.
It was great. You did good, and look forward to seeing y'all next week.
Thank you so much. That was Holly Taylor with Star Physical Therapy, taking us through not just concussions. Hopefully you learned something about stretching. And I know I learned something. I didn't know hot sauce was a good alternative to if you're cramping. I didn't know about pickle juice, mustard, and bananas, but didn't know about hot sauce. I love hot sauce, so I may try that next time I have a cramp. I real quickly wanted to go through some of the more intriguing games that we didn't get to talk to George Robinson about. We talked with George about pretty much all of it, but there were a couple things left that we didn't talk about. One of those matchups being NBA, Montgomery Bell Academy. They travel to McCallie, and talked with George. This Division II AAA region division is probably the best in the state, and that's including the 6A public school region. But McCallie, in my mind, Baylor, McCallie, the two best teams in the state. Well, McCallie welcomes NBA to town. NBA, you could tell that they were trying to pull the nose up on their season last year. Didn't always do that at times. They've had a couple of close, heartbreaking losses this season, and they don't have time to sulk because they go to McCallie, and they gotta play their A game, because McCallie is definitely going to bring that. McCallie being one of the best teams in the state. Sticking in the private school division, Nashville Christian, who is 8-0 on the year. If you talk to anybody who covers high school football and you ask them about this division, that being Division II Single A, Nashville Christian is the best team in the state. And I don't really see many teams standing in their way of them holding up a gold ball at the end of the year. They have Ezel Harding Christian, who is 5-3 on the year. Ezel Harding is having a better season this year than they've had in the past couple of years. They play Nashville Christian. Now, I don't see that being a huge roadblock for Nashville Christian, but it is a challenge. So that is a game that I will be keeping my eye on as well. And also, this one is not going to get a lot of eyeballs, but Mount Juliet, who is 2-6 on the year. We're not used to saying that about Mount Juliet. We're talking about a team who went, I believe it was 8-2 in the regular season last year. They're 2-6. Now, their defense has been actually pretty solid, but what's really hurt Mount Juliet this year has been the lack of production on offense. They've kind of had a turnstile at the quarterback position. They play Cookeville tonight. Both of these teams are 2-6, and the reality about football is somebody's got to win the game. So it's either going to be Mount Juliet or it's either going to be Cookeville. One of these, I mean, if we're being honest, both of these teams desperately need the win. But it's going to be big for whichever team does get the win, because there haven't been a lot of those to go around. So those are a couple other scores that we didn't, or games tonight that we didn't get to with George Robinson, that I just throwing out there for you to keep an eye on. We're going to go ahead and head to the break as we wrap up the first hour of the show. One more hour to go. Hopefully you're still sticking around with me and I'm not boring you too much. I know I don't have George. I know I don't have Kelly here, but hey, it is a football Friday, and this is what God created the fall for. No better sport on planet Earth, in my opinion. We're going to wrap up hour one, head to hour number two. This is the George Plaster Show.
Electronic Express is celebrating our 42nd anniversary with big savings in every department. Get a large capacity top-load laundry set for just $449 each. JBL wireless headphones for only $29. An LG 65-inch smart TV only $399. Lenovo 15-inch IdeaPad Slim for just $329. Shopping local has its perks too, like free delivery and up to 24 months interest-free financing. Visit us in-store or at electronicexpress.com. We've got that.
Hey, folks, Joe Rexrode here. Listen, it's time to prepare your parking lot to withstand harsh winter conditions by using Seal Master products. Your pavement is your welcome mat. First impressions are very important. It's important to seal and protect now or face a huge paving bill later. So protect that investment. Beautify your property. Call Seal Master today for a qualified contractor. They also do pickleball courts and other recreational things. 615-255-5505 or visit sealmaster.net and tell them Joe sent you.
Now, here's your latest Fox 17 Code Red weather report.
I'm Fox 17 meteorologist Greg Bobitz. The forecast this afternoon, after a frosty start, not a bad end to our day. We'll be in the mid to upper 60s with plenty of sunshine. And then this evening, temperatures falling into the 50s just after 6 o'clock and continuing back into the 40s.
Your sports live here on the Game Nashville Sports Network.
The Game Network and Family Leisure are cheering loud for the Vanderbilt Commodores as they take on Missouri this Saturday. Good luck to the Doors. Let's bring home that win. From your home for Nashville sports, the Game Network and Family Leisure.
Vandy fans, it's time to party. The Commodores are ranked in the top 10, and ESPN's College Game Day is coming to Nashville. To celebrate 102.5 The Game, will be broadcasting live this Friday afternoon at the new Party Foul near Vandy in Midtown at 2031 Broadway. The Chase and Big Joe Show, plus DVD with Willie Donick. D. Mace and Adam Vingan will break down all the action, plus one lucky winner will receive a pair of 50-yard line seats to the sold-out game against Missouri. Be at the all-new Party Foul in Midtown this Friday from noon to 6 p.m.
When I got my first car, my dad told me, keep the gas tank full and my number on speed dial. Now parents are telling their kids, save 615-242-9000 just in case. I'm Blair Durham. If you or someone you love is in a wreck, call us. We're here to get you the money you deserve.
Your sports live here. WBUZ HD3 Laverne. All around the world on the Game Nashville app. We are the Game Nashville Sports Network. ESPN 94.9. The Fan. A Cromwell media station.
30 years of the best sports talk in Middle Tennessee. It's the George Plaster Show, featuring Tennessee Sports Hall of Famers Kelly Holcomb and young gun Billy Derrick. And now, here's your host, George Plaster.
Now time for our stat of the day, brought to you by Apple Collision Centers. Since it's just me on here and I've already seen the answer, I'm not going to answer the question. So I'm just going to show it for those of you who may be watching via live stream. I can read it for those listening on the radio. The 76ers VJ Edgecombe scored 34 points in his NBA debut, the most in an NBA debut since which superstar? And I'm going to be honest, even if I didn't see the answer earlier, I still wouldn't have gotten it right. The answer is Wilt Chamberlain. With that, we welcome in the one and only Terry McCormick, our Titans insider for MainStreetMedia.com. Terry, the guys have left me high and dry today, so you get to listen to me ask you questions.
Okay, that's fine, Parker. I mean, I know you're up for it. Is George still in Fort Wayne?
He's somewhere in Indiana. I couldn't tell you. He's somewhere. He was near Fort Wayne yesterday, and I don't know. He's on his way back. I know that.
Kelly basically deserts you every Friday.
Yeah, Kelly deserts me every day of the week, not just Friday. So, really appreciate you sticking around. So I did want to ask about the Calvin Ridley injury. He is out a second straight week. I am not at practice. I haven't been able to be out there in the last couple of weeks. How severe is this injury for Calvin Ridley?
Well, they haven't really told us how severe, but most hamstring injuries, 2 to 3 weeks. And then when you say you're feeling good, you want to take another week just to make sure you don't re-injure it or anything like that and tweak it. So he suffered that injury in the first half against the Raiders. They held him out last week. He's going to miss this week. I would say next week would be probably the time that you'd start watching to see if he can do anything. And then after that, of course, is the bye week. So worst case scenario, I would think that Calvin would be back after the bye once they play the Chargers a week from Sunday.
And so no Calvin Ridley, no Bryce Oliver. Obviously, the Tyler Lockett news came out earlier this week that he's been released by the team. So we have a youth movement at wide receiver for the Titans. What do you make of that?
Yeah, they've got 4 guys that are going to be up on Sunday for sure. They put Mason Kinsey back on the 53-man roster. You know, he seems to have more lives than Freddie
Sticking
Krueger.
around.
But nonetheless, you've got him, you've got the 2 rookies in Alec Alamander and Chim Dike, and you've got the grizzled veteran of the room now in Van Jefferson. There's always the possibility that there would be a practice squad call-up for either James Prochet or, and fans have been clamoring for this one, Xavier Restrepo. Could it be? Could this be the week that Xavier Restrepo makes his NFL debut for the Tennessee Titans? I'm not holding my breath, but I'm not ruling it out either.
If you were in charge of the Titans, do you think that this so-called call-up for Xavier Restrepo that a lot of fans are calling for, do you think that it should happen sooner rather than later?
Well, you look at it two different ways. First, I doubt he's really ready. Otherwise they probably would have already made the move since he has familiarity with Cam Ward. He seems to be a good guy, but he just kind of seems to be limited with his size and lack of speed and things like that. So that makes me call it into question. But the second thing is, this team's not going anywhere. So you might as well start the youth movement pretty soon. If not now, when are you going to do it? Because this team's not going to the postseason. This team's headed for a top 5 pick, maybe even the number 1 overall for the second straight year. So you might as well start seeing what you've got in some of these younger guys, because how much worse can it get? I know we always say that, but, thinking that last year was rock bottom and now this year has been much worse. So, but from that perspective, you might as well start taking a look at some of these guys.
I mean, the spread is 14.5 this week in favor of Indianapolis. So I don't know. Is that a big enough spread? I tend to think it's going to be worse.
It might be. I mean, with no Simmons on defense, no Ridley, Arden Key is questionable if he's going to be able to go. Offensively, you know that the offensive line's not been playing well. The running game's not been able to get going. You don't have your top receiver. Your quarterback is struggling. I mean, I really don't see an avenue for the Titans to hang in this game, barring some kind of unforeseen miracle.
The lack of the run game has truly blown my mind, because that's something that the Titans have been able to do as long as I can remember. And I believe they had less than 40 yards rushing last week versus the Patriots. So that put all the pressure on Cam Ward. What did they have to do to get the run game going?
Well, there was no excuse not to get it going last week because they had a lead. You remember in the first half, they were ahead. In a lot of these games, the reason they've not been able to run the football is because they're down 14-3 before you can get settled into your seat to watch the game. So therefore, it kind of throws the run game out the window and puts you in the very unenviable drop back passing situation that this team can't seem to thrive in. So, but last week, there was really no excuse not to try and run the ball a little more and a little better, at least in the first half, before it got away in the second half.
L'Jarius Sneed has been placed on IR for the second time in his 2 seasons here. I know you've touched on this throughout the week with George, but how likely is it that we've seen L'Jarius Sneed play his last snap for the Titans?
I think it's very likely. I think that he's probably ready to move on from the Titans, and the Titans are probably ready to move on from him. Unless they just need bodies and he just wants to play in the last 5 or 6 meaningless games of the year, I would look at it that this is probably the end of it for Sneed and the Titans.
And we have the benefit of hindsight on this, but in your mind, does this make the Jarvis Brownlee trade look worse?
Yeah, absolutely it does, because you need bodies. And Jarvis Brownlee was at least, a halfway decent player at a position where you weren't overly deep. And now without Sneed, and I think if you're the Titans, if you were banking on Sneed to give you 17 games, I think that was certainly not a wise decision to do that, to bank on Sneed to give you a full season, given what happened last year. So, yeah, I mean, there must have been something really uncomfortable about how they felt about Jarvis Brownlee within that building to make that move, knowing that you're relying on L'Jarius Sneed and 3 guys, plus a 6th-round rookie in Marcus Harris, and 3 guys that you picked up off waivers in the last 2 years.
Jalen Armour-Davis being one of those who's, I'm sure, going to get the start at corner on Sunday. What I worry about for this team is, I mean, you have Jonathan Taylor, who's leading the league in rushing, and you don't have Jeffrey Simmons, who's one of your better run stoppers. I mean, what's the hope here in order for the Titans to stop the run on Sunday?
It's a great question. I mean, without Jeffrey Simmons available, it certainly leaves a hole there. I guess you have to hope that T'Vondre Sweat and Shy Tuttle and James Lynch and Sebastian Joseph Day can somehow get the job done, because that's the guys you're going to have. And, Sweat obviously would be the biggest difference maker among that group, provided he plays well and his conditioning is now ramped up enough that he can give you a full game again. So that's probably kind of where you're at, hanging your hopes on that.
Do you have anything else for us before the game on Sunday?
Well, it's just one of those things where, I got to thinking about it, and this may be fodder for you to throw out to the listeners later, but we know that when Simmons is healthy, you combine him with Sweat, the defensive line is the best position group on this roster, right?
Yeah.
I don't think it's even close.
Yeah.
What, in your opinion, is the second best position group on this Titans roster?
Oh my gosh. Couldn't tell you. Probably tight end, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, could be tight end, could be safety, could be maybe inside linebacker where
Safety's
Cedric
probably a
Gray's
better
emerged.
answer.
But there's not a lot that is promising, at any position group on this team. I mean, I'd say most of the position groups on this team probably rank in the bottom 5 in the league. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
And, people wonder why this thing's not getting any better. There's your answer. They have holes all over at nearly every position group except arguably the defensive line and their specialists with the punter, the kicker, and the long snapper.
Because, and I'm not, I think we all agree that Callahan's leash was pretty short this year, but there's only so much that you can do when you have a roster like that. I mean,
yeah,
you can only scheme so much.
Sure. I mean, you're absolutely right. There's only so much that you can do, and, you're just kind of hamstrung, especially when you've got a roster that's in disrepair and you're trying to break in a rookie quarterback who's seeing everything for the first time, at the NFL level. It's just, is what it is.
Absolutely. Terry, we really appreciate it. George will be back, fingers crossed, on Monday, and so will Kelly. So you'll get to hear questions from all three of us instead of just me.
All right. Have a good weekend, Parker.
Appreciate it, Terry. That was Terry McCormick with Main Street Media, our Titans insider, telling us what we need to know for Sunday as the Titans travel for round 2 with the Colts, this time in Indianapolis. The spread on this game is Indy minus 14.5. And I'm going to be honest, don't think it's big enough. I think it is going to be much worse than that. Indianapolis is legit this year. I tried to find reasons to doubt that team, and I'm getting to the point where I can't do it anymore. I think that they are legit, but that means that it is time for one thing. It is time for our daily sports update sponsored by our Football Night in Nashville promotion. Join us out at Sports and Social in Green Hills Mall next Thursday night for Thursday Night Football. We do this every Thursday night. So we've been talking a lot about the Tony Vitello situation. We had Tony Basilio on Tuesday to talk about it. Tony Basilio is really good friends with Tony Vitello. They're certainly very close. So if there's anybody that was close enough to that situation, it was him. But at that point in time, we didn't know what was going to happen with Tony Vitello because he had not made his decision. Well, he made his decision on Wednesday that he was going to take the manager position with the San Francisco Giants for the first time in MLB history. A team is hiring a coach that has no prior MLB experience. They hired Vitello to do just that. They've named an interim head coach over in Knoxville, Frank Anderson, the pitching coach, Josh Elander, who is the associate head coach. It was said by athletic director Danny White that he's being considered for the position, but he wasn't named interim, which kind of leaves Vol fans scratching their head. Tony Vitello did release an emotional statement today to Vol Nation, and I think that it was very appropriate. It was very heartfelt. I don't think Vols fans have any ill will towards Vitello. Now, obviously, it's a very sad day because you're seeing the coach who won you a major national championship hit the exit door to go to the pros. Now you're happy for Tony Vitello, and this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for him. I don't think there's any denying that. But it was a sad day for Vols fans, and he released a heartfelt, emotional message. I saw it on Twitter. I highly encourage you to go check that out as well. Speaking of addressing people, this one is really interesting. This one came out. This was reported by On3. Billy Napier, who was fired from Florida, and there's been a lot of speculation about who Florida might go after in the head coaching search. And there's one answer that stands above them all, and that is current Ole Miss head coach Lane Kiffin. Well, it's kind of abnormal for coaches to address those rumors with a team, and that's what Lane Kiffin is doing. Lane Kiffin is addressing the Florida coaching search with his team today, and I think that it's very, very interesting because he's taking a different approach to this than how you might think. He's more so addressing it from the angle that, hey, this is what happens when you build what we have here in Oxford. Now, I'm not going to sit here and try to speculate whether this means that he is going to take the job, which, if I'm being honest, I do think is going to happen. There's a 50-50 chance on this, that he goes to Gainesville or he stays in Oxford. Now, from a 50,000 point view, you and I can have the opinion that Florida is a much better job than the Ole Miss job, but it really depends because Lane Kiffin, his preferences may be different. Does he want to leave the life behind that he has in Oxford? Does he want to, how important is legacy to Lane Kiffin, what he's been able to build in Oxford? Does he want to tarnish that legacy and maybe go chase a national championship at Florida? These are the questions that I'm sure that he's asking himself. But I think it's very interesting. This was reported by Molly McGrath, who's ESPN's sideline reporter, that Ole Miss and head coach Lane Kiffin, he's addressing the team about the Florida rumors. So I thought that would be good to include in the update. Moving on to the NFL, over $315,000 in fines are being handed out to the New York Giants over a violation of concussion protocol. Now, this happened last Thursday as the New York Giants took on the Philadelphia Eagles. Jackson Dart exited the game a little bit early with, he's holding his head, went to the blue medical tent. Clearly, from if you were watching the game, you could probably figure that, that's a concussion symptom. He went to the blue tent, and then it panned, the TV angle panned to a different angle and showed Brian Daboll yelling at the medical personnel, the head doctor for the New York Giants, trying to figure out if Jackson Dart was going to be able to come back in the game. We saw Brian Daboll enter the blue medical tent. We also saw fourth-round rookie running back Cam Scadaboo enter the blue medical tent, and that violates the NFL's concussion protocol. So the NFL has since handed out some violations to the New York Giants in response to this. Those fines going to Daboll and Cam Scadaboo. Wanted to give a College Game Day update. They are here. Kirk Herbstreit and I believe Reese Davis had some media availability today in Nashville. They are getting set up actually at Vanderbilt's campus. There was questions over whether it would be on Broadway or would you have it on Vanderbilt's campus. It is happening at the Wyatt Center, the Wyatt Lawn on the campus of Vanderbilt. And they're all arriving today. Pat McAfee actually did his show from inside of Vanderbilt Stadium today, and that's pretty typical depending on where College Game Day is that week. So if you're able to make it out tomorrow, I highly encourage you to do so. I will be there bright and early at the butt crack of dawn. Very excited. World Series update. We have game 1 of the World Series happening tonight between the LA Dodgers and the Toronto Blue Jays. That game can be viewed 7 p.m. on Fox. Game 2 will also be tomorrow at the same time. A lot of people figured that LA is going to run away with this one. We talked to Danny Evans yesterday, who's a former Dodgers general manager, and he actually said that he thinks the Dodgers will win in 6. So game 1 starts tonight. Nashville Predators update. Since we're at the Ford Ice Center, they are in the middle of a long home stretch. They'll play tomorrow night versus the LA Kings at home, and they'll also play Sunday against Dallas, that game also at home. So a back-to-back this weekend for the Nashville Predators. We're going to go ahead and head to a commercial break, and when we come back, one of my favorite people is going to be on the line with us, and that is Mack Brown, former Vanderbilt and UAB head coach. We're going to get into all things college football with him. You're not going to want to miss it. This is the George Plaster Show.
When I got my first car, my dad told me, keep the gas tank full and my number on speed dial. Now parents are telling their kids, save 615-242-9000 just in case. I'm Blair Durham. If you or someone you love is in a wreck, call us. We're here to get you the money you deserve.
A golf cart from Mikey's Motors is the perfect way to get around this summer. Whether you're going to the park, the pool, or the playground, do it in a brand new golf cart from Mikey's Motors, Franklin and Murfreesboro.
Summertime fun in Tennessee. That's what we sell at Mikey's Motors. Come see how we roll.
Here's Officer Garen Hoskins for the Metro Nashville Police Department.
The Metro Nashville Police Department is on the forefront of policing in this century, and I'm glad I'm a part of it. I'm glad I get to find other good officers, other future good officers. And if you're watching today, or you yourself or someone you happen to know is interested, join MNPD.com. Feel free to reach out to us because we need good officers, and it's a great city to work for.
Star Physical Therapy was established in 1997 with one great mission: to serve. If you're hurting, don't wait to receive physical therapy. You don't need a referral to see their physical therapist, and early morning and evening appointments are available. Make the call to 615-673-1420 and get rid of that pain. Star Physical Therapy, the official health provider of Football Friday. Or go online. Are you looking for expert medical care in Nashville without leaving your home? Medical House Calls brings concierge-level health care directly to your door. Whether you need urgent attention, ongoing primary care, revitalizing IV therapy, or medically guided weight loss, our experienced providers are just a phone call away at 615-838-2375 or go online, medicalhousecalls.com. It's easy to say good things about the folks at Strike and Spare Family Fun Centers. Number one, I trust them with something that's near and dear to me, the Plaster and Friends Celebrity Bowling Night. But more importantly, I see the fun people have. They enjoy the bowling, they enjoy the camaraderie, and you will too. Come by any of their locations and get ready to have some fun.
On Twin Peaks, where sports and flavor go head to head.
ESPN Radio lives here. Your sports live here on ESPN 94.9 The Fan.
Welcome back into the George Plaster Show as we are well into the final hour of the show. And with that, we welcome in one of my favorite people, Watson Brown. Watson, can you believe that both George and Kelly decided to desert me today, and it is just me?
Well, George is prone to do that, so welcome. You're just one of many victims that happened to. He went on vacation once and asked me to do the show for a week. That was interesting, I'm telling you. So, no, get ready. You'll have more of that than you think.
I warned all the listeners before, as I got on the air, I said, this is either going to go really good or this is going to go really bad. And depending on how the show goes, I'm sure they'll let me know throughout. But I think it's going good so far. It's better now that you're on, I will say.
No, it's going great. I'm sure you're doing great, and George is glad to have you. So lucky to have you. There you go.
Well, I'm very lucky to be talking to you because we have a loaded slate of college football games this weekend. And I just wanted to start off with the game that's kind of been the buzz around town, and that is Vanderbilt, Missouri. College game day is in town. I wanted to ask about. I wanted to start with Diego Pavia because I've watched a lot of these quarterbacks play this year, and through 8-9 weeks, wherever we are in the season, I can't think of a reason why Diego Pavia should not be a Heisman contender at this point in time.
Absolutely. There's no reason. But win the Heisman, you're going to have to be on a really good team. We promoted Eric Jones. He was I think, offensive player of the year before as a quarterback in the 80s. And his senior year, we promoted him for the Heisman. We didn't win enough games for that to happen for him. He had a great year, but you've got to be on a really good team, and they're sitting 6-1. And it'll have a lot to do with the way he plays and stays healthy the rest of the way. It'll have a lot to do with how many they win. There's so much – they set themselves up. There's so much at stake the rest of the way now that every game, whether they win or lose this one, it's still a lot on the plate for the rest of this year. So it's kind of neat that they've got themselves in this spot. And honestly, to me, it looks pretty good because this league this year just does not have a dominant football team, including Alabama to me. I just don't see the dominance I've seen maybe one or two teams in years past. This is a really good league down halfway through the league. And Vanderbilt's right in the middle of all that.
I think it's kind of funny because it's almost like the Big 12 and the SEC switch places, because last year I think there were 2 weeks left to go in the regular season, and there were 9 Big 12 teams that could have potentially been in their title game. And this year in the SEC, if you ask me right now who's going to play in the SEC championship, I could give you an answer, but I mean, there's so much parity in this league right now, and it's so much fun to watch.
Oh, it's wonderful. The way it's set up, and we see SEC games all day long on the major networks, and it's just neat. There's just been fantastic football games this year, and it's not going to stop. It's going to finish this way. Anybody that can project who's going to be there at the end is crazy, because from here on, you pretty much are playing each other, and injury is going to be such a big piece of this. I was in this business for 40-something years, 32 as a head coach, and my good teams were playing with the same guys at the end of the year they started the year with. Some of my poor record teams had a bunch of injuries, and we were playing with different guys. And so watch it as time goes on, and that's going to be the big piece for Diego, because he's got to touch the ball a bunch for Vanderbilt to win. And a lot of those touches have to be carries. So we've got to make sure that he can find a way to stay healthy. So far, he has been able to do that. And I just think that that will be big tomorrow, because everybody is zeroing in on him. Last year, it took about half a season for that to happen. Not anymore. Everybody is zeroing in on him. So he's got to protect himself, but yet can't back off of the aggressive carries that he gets through call plays and through different scrambling things that happen on passes that he makes plays on. He's got to keep doing those things.
And the thing about Diego Pavia, he may not blow you away statistically, but if you really watch Vanderbilt play, the Houdini act that he's able to pull off, especially on third down. I mean, Vanderbilt is one of the best third down teams in the country. When I think of an award like the Heisman, or this could even be the MVP in the NFL, how valuable are you to your team? And I look around college football and I think to myself, there are not many guys who could pull off what Diego Pavia is doing at Vanderbilt, of all places. I mean, I really think this is the best Vanderbilt team may have ever seen. And the fact that he's able to elevate everybody around him and get Vanderbilt to the point where College game day is in town, it's truly unprecedented and special.
No, I 100% agree. What they've done up till now and what Diego has been able to do up till this point. But from here on now is where it's just what it's all about. The rest of the way, not just this game, but Texas the next week, and then Auburn, then Kentucky, then Tennessee, whatever it is down the road, it's got to keep happening. And I just really believe if he stays healthy that Tennessee and Vanderbilt could be playing each other for the playoffs at the end of the year. That's how much I think this team has set itself up. And just looking at the schedule the rest of the way, Texas is not playing good football. They very well could lose tomorrow in Starkville. Very well could lose. And they're just not playing good football. Thank goodness their defense is, but their offense has really, really been disappointing. Auburn is majorly struggling. Kentucky is majorly struggling to score points. And so, I mean, there are winnable games sitting in front of them, including this one this weekend, even though this one this weekend scares me a lot more than LSU. I would have bet the house. I'm not a bettor. I would have bet the house Vanderbilt beat LSU. I'm just not impressed with them. And they just beat them. They beat them physically the other day, and that did not surprise me at all. Missouri's a little different bird, and they fit more to what Vanderbilt's style is, and they're coming in here very hungry because everybody right now is patting Vanderbilt on the back, and Missouri is with the same record not getting as much of the accolades. It's probably because if this game had been at Missouri, the game day may have been there. But they're using this, I'm telling you. So I think Missouri will be a very formidable opponent tomorrow.
Kind of looking around the SEC, you brought up the Auburn and Arkansas game, and I look at that game. It's at Arkansas, and what most people don't realize about Arkansas, they probably tuned out because they have the 2-5 record. But for those who still watch Arkansas, offense has not really been the problem. It's been more so on the defensive side of the ball. I believe Arkansas has one of the better quarterbacks in the SEC with Taylor Green, everything that he's able to do with his arm, and then you throw in the running ability as well. And Auburn, who, yeah, there have been a couple games that you can probably say, officiating probably cost them that game. But then there are just a lot of times where, like last week versus Missouri, they had an opportunity to win in double overtime and didn't capitalize. Now they go to Fayetteville, and I totally think this is a Bobby Petrino special, and I see Arkansas winning this game.
I think so too. Auburn is just not scoring enough points, and I really think they're going to have to look at changing quarterbacks. I've read some things where there's a possibility they're going to play some different guys this week. I just don't think the quarterback play in the passing game has been consistent enough for Auburn to win. Their defense is much better than it looks, but they have to play so many plays because their offense is so many 3-and-outs. And so, yes, I really don't think Auburn can score enough points to beat Arkansas. And Taylor Green is one of the best players in the country. He does every bit as much for his team as Diego does for Vanderbilt. He just doesn't get the credit because they're not winning. But he's had a heck of a year, and that offense is tough to stop by everybody. And this is the best defense I think Arkansas has played in a while. So we'll see what happens. But I think they score, and I don't think Auburn can stay with them.
Speaking of teams that can't really score, you just talked about LSU. They have a night game, and they host Texas A&M. And I really think that this Texas A&M team is different in previous years. And the reason I say that is because I don't think it's been a talent issue down in College Station. They've always had the talent because they're in Texas, and they can basically handpick whoever they want. They have a good collection of boosters down there, but I just don't think they have had the right guy to steer the ship in the right direction. But I believe they have that now with Mike Elko. And if you look at the way that Texas A&M has won, they win a shootout in South Bend versus Notre Dame. They've won knockdown, drag-out fights against several SEC opponents this year. I truly believe the culture is different down there in College Station under Mike Elko, and I like A&M in this game over LSU.
You know, I do too, but I think this is the back against the wall game for LSU. everything really turns in the wrong direction if they lose this one. They're at home at night. They just lost. They've lost on the road to Ole Miss. They've lost to Vanderbilt. They haven't looked good in either game. And I just think this is it. And they know it. The team knows it. The atmosphere knows it. So they're going to catch LSU at their best. I don't think LSU is still good enough, even though I do think this is going to be a very close game. I just think right now A&M has that it factor, and they're winning the close games, and the NBA star is doing it for them too. I mean, he has played so much better this year than last. It's in his second go around, and Marcel is playing lights out. And I just think A&M's right now, you got to beat them. The one thing I see different than them than the last Stouse teams is they do not beat themselves. You got to beat them. And they're going to make enough plays, and they're not going to give you things. And their defense is gritty and solid, and their offense seems to come up with plays at the right time. And they're not going to beat themselves. So LSU's going to have to go win this one. I don't think they're tough enough to go do that.
I want to ask you about Brian Kelly because I know several LSU fans, and I know especially down in Baton Rouge, they're not happy. But the reality is LSU is 5-2, and theoretically, there is a world out there in which they could win out and still make the college football playoff. Now, I don't think that's likely to happen, and I'd go as far as saying it's not going to happen. But you don't fire a coach at this point in time when there's still a chance of making the playoff. But if LSU loses this game, that volume gets turned up on Brian Kelly. Do you think this is closer to the end of his tenure in Baton Rouge?
I think he's got to win some games. I do. And they lose Saturday, and they're basically out of the playoffs at that point. They've got 3 losses. I don't think anybody in this league gets in with 3 this year. It'll be 2 losses. There'll be a bunch of 2 losses fighting. But that's what I see, because I think you're going to beat each other a little, but not to the point of having 3 losses. And so this is that's why I say this is a back against the wall game for LSU. And everybody knows it. That the team knows it. The fans are going to know it. This is a huge football game. That's why I think it's going to be a much closer game than people think. And we'll see if LSU can turn it up because their backs are against the wall. I think they will. I think they're going to play much better than they did on the road against Vanderbilt and on the road against Ole Miss. But I still think A&M has been in these kind of games, man, and I don't think they'll flinch when they go to Baton Rouge and get in the stadium.
Ole Miss and Oklahoma play, and Ole Miss had Georgia on the ropes last week. They were this close to finishing it out, but we know if you want to beat Georgia, you have to completely cut the head off of the snake. And Ole Miss got a pretty sizable lead at one point, but they allowed Georgia to creep back in, and you cannot do that with that Georgia team because, honestly, in my opinion, they're one of the more resilient programs in the entire country, if not the most. Well, they go to Norman this week, and they take on Oklahoma. Who do you like in this one?
This is the one that I'm not sure about. This is probably the favorite game to watch, even though I'm a Vanderbilt guy and what's going on there. But I just can't wait to see if Ole Miss can really move the ball well against this Oklahoma defense. Nobody really has. Even when Texas beat Oklahoma, they didn't go up and down the field against this defense. They made mistakes. Oklahoma did. Mateer was not ready to play that day, and he turned it over a bunch, and that was the difference in the game, along with a punt return late in that game that just won the game. But it wasn't the Texas offense beating the Oklahoma defense. Nobody has yet. And Lane's teams are usually good at this. I can't wait to see if they can turn around and do it again. I mean, Ole Miss scored every time they had the ball till the fourth quarter, and yet Georgia is resilient enough. And that's what I say about it's a little bit of the A&M thing I said. They just don't quit, and they just keep hanging in there this year. Georgia's done this for years. You're right. You have to cut the head off the snake. You're not going to beat Georgia. Tennessee went through the same thing. Tennessee is winning, they're winning, and then in the fourth quarter, Georgia found a way to win the game. And Oklahoma's defense, I think, is probably the best defense in the league. It's either them or Texas. It's the two best defenses in the league, and I can't wait to see if Ole Miss can move the ball. If Ole Miss moves it like they did Georgia, no contest. They're going to win, but I'm not sure they will. I coached there 2 years in Norman, and I know that atmosphere. And those folks, this is a big game. This is a big game for Oklahoma. They really stay right in the mix. It's a big game for both because both have one loss. And so that second loss shows up now. I think your back's against the wall. You cannot lose another one and get into the playoffs. So this is a huge football game for both of these, as the Vanderbilt Missouri game is, because you hit the second loss, you basically know you got to win out. So there's some big football games this weekend that some are going to get their backs against the wall and some can still breathe, saying they got a little breathing room.
I'm absolutely fascinated by this Ole Miss Oklahoma game because I know Oklahoma, they lead the SEC in sacks. They're really good at getting to the quarterback, but Ole Miss has proven time after time, and it doesn't matter who's back there at quarterback, could be you or I, that they're still going to put up points. So I agree. If Ole Miss is able to put up, I'd say 30 or more, I feel very comfortable in them winning this game because I look at Oklahoma and what they are on offense. They haven't got John Mateer back to running the football post his hand surgery, and they already can't run the football as it is. How big of a factor do you see if Oklahoma is able to run the football or not? Do you think that'll determine if they're able to win the football game?
Yeah, but I don't think he's back yet. I had a very important quarterback break his thumb in early in a season, and it took 6 weeks to get him back. It took 6 weeks. And when I saw he was trying to play, I said, my gosh, there's no way. There's just no way he's back yet. And I don't think he is yet. And it may still be a week or two away. But it's going to be, yes. We'll see what Oklahoma's offense is. But I think it's Oklahoma defense against the Ole Miss offense. If they hold them in the low 20s, they're going to win the game. If Ole Miss hits 28-31, they're going to win the game. So that's the matchup I can't wait to see.
Are there any other games there's plenty of them to choose from, but are there any other games that you're specifically looking forward to watching this weekend?
Yeah, I'm really anxious to watch Tennessee and Kentucky. Kentucky's getting better. They're getting better. I'm telling you, and it's a shame because they're not winning games, but they beat Texas. I mean, up and down the field. They
Yes.
hold Texas to 8 first downs. Texas wins the game with 8 first downs. When I had 8 first games as a head coach or an offensive coordinator, we were embarrassed. I mean, you can't win doing that. And Kentucky had 20-something first downs, but yet they don't score points. They just don't have the big play pieces. Their quarterback is getting better. Each week he's getting better. And watch this game because this is the back against the wall game for both teams. Kentucky needs it to get some momentum and get going because they got some winnable games on the schedule left too. And Tennessee, they cannot get to 2 losses. They've had their one, so they've got to go win this football game. And so I'm not many are talking about this game, but I think Kentucky gained some confidence even from losing the other day. And I know how they get, especially when it's in Lexington. When Kentucky is playing Tennessee in Lexington, that's their shot to beat them. Watch this game close because I think Kentucky is getting better. They're getting a little better on defense, and their quarterback play is much better. If they had a go-to guy like they've had in some years past, all of them seem to have left and went to other schools. But if they could come up with a go-to guy to throw the ball to, my gosh, they could start winning some football games because I think Boley is getting better as a quarterback.
I think the difference in this is Does Tennessee get off to a fast start? Because if they do, I'm very confident they'll win the football game. But if Kentucky is able to, I mean, they like to get down and dirty in the trenches. If they make this a fist fight in a phone booth, I think that Kentucky will have the edge. But it's hard for me not to take Tennessee outright.
Oh, I think Tennessee wins, but I think it's going to be a much better game than people think. This one could go a ways, but I do not think Kentucky can score with Tennessee. Tennessee is going to get their points, and it might not be early or whatever, but they'll get their – when the game ends, they're going to have their points, and Kentucky hasn't been coming close to getting in that 30-point range. So I think Tennessee's going to win, but I think this is a much better game than people think.
I agree. Watson, really appreciate the time. It's always a pleasure just sitting back, relaxing, talking some college football. There's nothing better.
No, it didn't. Have fun, man.
Appreciate
Enjoy yourself. You're doing a great job.
We'll have to give George a hard time next week.
I will give George a hard time for hanging you out to dry. Nothing new.
Appreciate it, Watson. Thank you so much.
Good to talk to you. Always an honor. See ya.
That was Watson Brown, former head coach at Vanderbilt and UAB. Just two guys sitting back, talking some college football. Not many things better on this beautiful, big green earth of ours. We're going to hit one more commercial break, pay some bills. When we come back, I got some best bets for you. You're not going to want to miss it. This is the George Plaster Show.
When I got my first car, my dad told me, keep the gas tank full and my number on speed dial. Now parents are telling their kids, save 615-242-9000 just in case. I'm Blair Durham. If you or someone you love is in a wreck, call us. We're here to get you the money you deserve.
Sports and Social at Green Hills Mall is the new home for our Football Night in Nashville promotion. Their food is terrific. Their TV setup looks like a race and sports book in Vegas. And if you're a sports fan, you can't beat it. Starting September the 4th, we'll broadcast from Sports and Social every Thursday night. There's Pop-A-Shot, great football, and the chance to win a beautiful Mikey's Motors golf cart. See you at Sports and Social in Green Hills Mall.
As the trusted premier custom home builder in Middle Tennessee, Donnelly Timmons has over 20 years of experience in the industry. Whether you're looking to build your dream home or renovate your current home, their team will ensure that every client and every remodel is unique, luxurious, and completed on time within budget. Founders Dustin Timmons and Joey Donnelly have over 25 years of construction experience in the Nashville area. Together, they have completed projects in Forest Hills, Oak Hill, Green Hills, Franklin, and Brentwood. Dustin and Joey believe that communication is the most important aspect of all construction projects. Therefore, they personally manage each project themselves and are involved in job site activities on a daily basis. Their commitment to quality and integrity has earned them an outstanding reputation among their clients. Contact them to set an appointment for a free consultation or to view some of their completed projects. Give them a call at 615-456-7983 or log on to DonnellyTimmons.com.
Convenience and value, two words that we expect when we do business. Our goal at JHA Company is to deliver just that, both to our school partners and to our customers. Whether you're purchasing photos, yearbooks, class jewelry, letter jackets, school spirit wear, or senior graduation products, we strive to make the experience easy, convenient, and cost-effective. Find out more at jhacompany.com or call 615-867-6345 for more information. JHA, one source, one company.
Weather report.
I'm Fox 17 meteorologist Greg Bobitz. The forecast this afternoon after a frosty start, not a bad end to our day. We'll be in the mid to upper 60s with plenty of sunshine. And then this evening, temperatures falling into the 50s just after 6 o'clock and continuing back into the 40s.
Your sports live here on the Game Nashville Sports Network. It's the George Plaster Show. Your sports live here on 94.9 The Fan.
Final segment here on the George Plaster Show. Only right that we go out with, not with Plaster's bet of the day, although we will recap that because he may have taken another L last night. Oh no, he didn't. He didn't. We'll go through that. But we don't have Plaster's bet of the day. We have PK's bet of the day. All right, or bets of the weekend. Let's go ahead and quickly recap George's bets, brought to you by Bart Durham Injury Law. He did take the Chargers minus 3.5 last night, so congratulations to George. He is 66, 72, and 3 overall, still below 500. Let's see if I can do better. He's always challenged me to that, so let's see if I deliver. Okay, so tonight we have a Friday night game between Cal and Virginia Tech, and believe it or not, this is a conference matchup, although one can see the Pacific Ocean from their football offices and the other can see the Atlantic Ocean from their football offices, yet they're still playing in the same conference. I digress. Cal is on the road in Blacksburg tonight, taking on Virginia Tech. Friday night game, the Calgorithm, I'm taking Cal outright, taking Cal money line versus Virginia Tech. I'm one of the sickos that has stayed up for a 9:30 kickoff on a Saturday night watching Cal take on Duke or Cal take on Oregon State, whoever they may be playing. I've actually really enjoyed watching this Cal team play. They have a stud freshman quarterback that goes by the acronym JKS because I'm not going to try to pronounce his name. He is from over where Tua Tagovailoa is from, so a very complicated name. I'm not going to try to pronounce it, but I like Cal outright versus Virginia Tech. UCLA on the cusp of winning 4 straight games in a row. They have won 3 straight. They take on Indiana in Bloomington. They are 25.5-point underdogs. Now, what has been very interesting about this UCLA team as they've been on their 3-game win streak is they actually have a pretty solid offense. And that's because interim offensive coordinator Jerry Neuheisel, he's kind of taken the college football world by storm. He's getting the most out of the remaining players that are left over that did not enter the transfer portal when their coach was fired. Nico Iamaleava versus Fernando Mendoza, a sneaky, interesting quarterback matchup. I think UCLA is going to cover the spread, but I like Indiana outright. Just talking about this game with Watson Brown in the last segment, Ole Miss and Oklahoma. Now, I don't necessarily have a reason to believe that Ole Miss is not going to score. Now, they haven't faced they faced some good defenses, but they haven't faced a defense capable of what Oklahoma is in terms of what they bring to the table. Now, if Ole Miss is able to if they score like they did versus Georgia last week, I see them winning this game no problem because I question what Oklahoma is able to do running the football. John Mateer hasn't looked like himself since coming back from the hand surgery. But I'm going to take Ole Miss outright because I believe that 30 points is good enough to win them this football game, and I think they'll be able to get to that. Arkansas and Auburn also talked about this game with Watson Brown. I'm telling you, for those of you that have checked out of Arkansas football, they have one of the sneaky best offenses, not just in the SEC, but in America. But they don't get talked about because they're 2-5. And they have a quarterback by the name of Taylon Green who is playing very, very high-level football for them. The problem is his defense hasn't picked up the slack. But Arkansas's offense is very, very good. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're Georgia. I don't care if you're Alabama, you're Tennessee. You don't want to play Arkansas's offense right now. Their defense, you can have a heyday with. But if you're playing Arkansas right now and your defense gives up a lot of points, it's going to be a shootout. Auburn has had so many issues this year. I believe Hugh Freeze is going to end up being fired by the end of the year. This is a Bobby Petrino game. Arkansas, this is the one that I'm most confident in. I believe Arkansas is going to win this football game. Minnesota and Iowa. They play for a little trophy. It's a pig trophy. The pig's name is Floyd of Rosedale. And if you look at the trophy, it's literally just a metal pig. One of the best trophies in sports. That's all I can say. Minnesota is a 7.5 point underdog to Iowa. I believe that this is going to be your tip. When you think of typical Big Ten football, you think of running the football, you think of defense, you think of very low scoring games. This is going to be that. I think Minnesota is going to cover the spread, but I like Iowa simply because they are at home. If they weren't at home, if this game would happen to be played on a neutral field, I think this would come down to a pick 'em. But because Iowa is at home, I think Iowa's going to win this football game, and I think Minnesota covers. Mississippi State in Texas. They are 6.5 point underdogs, and I've kind of been mulling this one over. I have not been impressed by Texas really at many points this year. I thought the Oklahoma win was good for them, but if you watch them play versus Kentucky last weekend, the game that went into overtime, they were not impressive. And Mississippi State has been in almost every game that they've played in this year. They've only gotten blown out one time, and that was to Texas A&M. But Mississippi State is very capable of hitting the deep play down the field. They're very capable of stretching you vertically. I think that they will be able to do that. Now, I don't think they're going to have to score 40 to beat Texas because Texas's offense hasn't found a rhythm. So I think Mississippi State is not only going to cover, but I think they're going to win. I think they're going to win a close one. And this game is also in Starksville. So that is something to note as well. Texas A&M and LSU. Texas A&M is favored by 2.5 in Baton Rouge at night. Now, LSU has not had very many losses at night during Brian Kelly's tenure, but LSU has a very ugly record of 5-10 under Brian Kelly versus ranked teams. Texas A&M is playing very, very good football right now. I believe they are a legit national championship contender. I believe if Texas A&M scores 27 or more, that is enough to win the football game because LSU can't run the football. Their offensive line was manhandled by Vanderbilt last week. There's a lot of pressure on Garrett Nussmeier, and he's been making some careless mistakes with the football. I think Texas A&M is going to be able to gash them on offense, and I like Texas A&M to win the game. And I wanted to throw one NFL bet in there. That is the Carolina Panthers versus the Buffalo Bills. Now, I like the Buffalo Bills to win this game outright. But Carolina has been one of the sneaky good NFL teams, and they have an above 500 record 7 games into the season, which I don't remember the last time that happened, but they're sitting at 4-3 and they're playing really good football. Rico Dowdle has been playing exceptionally well. He's top 5 in the NFL in rushing yards. I actually get excited to watch the Carolina Panthers play football, which is something I haven't said in recent years. I like Buffalo to win this game. They had a bye week last week. They dropped their previous 2 games before that. I think this is a kind of backs against the wall situation for Buffalo. I think they win the game, but I like the Panthers to cover. Fun show today. I told you it would be. Now, I didn't necessarily know which direction we were going to go since, it's just me. But for those of you that have stuck around, I really appreciate it. We will be back on Monday, the whole crew, Kelly, George, and I. We'll all be here. We'll recap, hopefully a Titans win, which I'm not too confident in saying. If you can hear by the sound of my voice, I think it's going to get pretty ugly. We'll be here to recap it all. We'll recap everything that happened in the world of college football and any other big stories that break. We'll be here to talk about it with you guys. Really appreciate the listeners. We'll see you on Monday.
Now, here's your latest Fox 17 Code Red weather report.
I'm Fox 17 meteorologist Greg Bobis. The forecast this afternoon after a frosty start. Not a bad end to our day. We'll be in the mid to upper 60s with plenty of sunshine. And then